All guests on ZASLOW Show 2.0 brought to us by the official beer of the program. You know, we're talking Johnny, Cuba. How else are we going to enjoy Thursday night football tonight? And with a nice cold Johnny Cuba in our hand, European roots, a Caribbean soul, refreshing German lager in a can. Go to johnnycuba.us. Find the nearest location to you. Make sure you always drink responsibly. And, of course, don't forget Johnny Cuba's mantra, stay tranquilo. Our pal is CBS Sports Fantasy Football expert Jamey Eisenberg. All right, so Jamey, the Gators obviously dropped to 1-3. At what point in this season do you think that they fire Billy Napier, if at all in season?
You know, I would imagine that they want the losses to pile up on his resume at this point. So, you know, it's difficult to fire a coach, especially when you got to, deal with recruiting and how you don't want to lose anybody because of the transfer portal. So it wouldn't shock me if they let it play out the entirety and, maybe see if they game against the Hurricanes. They just can't do anything offensively. I think they need a quarterback change at this point, just to see what, Jones can do to maybe salvage a little bit of the offense.
What happened there? Like DJ Lagway, we were talking so highly about him going into this season.
I don't know if the moment's too big for him, if he, just doesn't see the field as well as potentially, he needs to. There's just a lot of things at play right now. I don't think the play design is very good. They certainly don't, you saw what the against Miami, and I don't think they use that properly enough as well. So there's just a lot of things I think going on behind the scenes that are just not very good in Florida right now.
All right, Jamey, let's focus on tonight as Week 4 gets going. Seahawks Cardinals. This is a pretty good. This NFC West, at least in the early part of the season, one of the best divisions in football. We got a pretty good game tonight. What do you like?
I like the Seahawks. I think based on what we saw from San Francisco and Arizona last week, the Cardinals may have gotten exposed a little bit. Kyler's got to play better. I do think fantasy-wise, it's going to be fun to see what Trey Benson does. You never want to see a guy get hurt, but, James Conner's injury now allows Trey Benson the opportunity to maybe prove himself and looking like the running back of the future there in Arizona because, James Conner's 30 years old. So he's going to be, I think, a good number 2 running back rest of way. I would use him in this game tonight. I need to see a little bit more from Marvin Harrison, which I think would obviously help as well. Kyler's a borderline starter. Seattle's been, an interesting team because they are giving so many opportunities to Jackson Smith in the jig, but he's really justifying his average draft position in round 3. Cooper Kupp has had one good game, and now we're back to the running back scenario that we had in the first 2 games, of Zach Charbonnet being healthy. So it was a split. First game was Charbonnet as the better performer. Next game, week 2, was Ken Walker by himself. I still trust Walker more than Charbonnet right now, but if Charbonnet comes out and has a good game, then we have a problem again.
We can't trust Cooper Kupp yet at this point, right?
No, if he has another bad game, he'll be droppable. I think a lot of people were ready to drop him after week 1 because of when he was drafted, the disappointing performance. We know what happened last year. I don't know how much of it, honestly, Zaz, is a Cooper Kupp problem more so than it's just an offensive philosophy problem because they're just not throwing the ball very much. Around 25 attempts per game in his last 3. And so there's only so many targets when the volume that JSN is getting. So I like Torrey Horton, their rookie wide receiver. He's got a touchdown each of the last 2 weeks. But you just can't trust anybody outside of JSN right now just based on how little they're throwing the ball.
All right, let's look at the Dolphins here. We'll skip ahead to Monday night, and then we'll get to the other games here. Dolphins, Jets, Monday Night Football. What do we like?
I like a lot, especially if Justin Fields clears the concussion protocol. So, we're recording this on Thursday, and he was, first time that we see him practice. As long as he's healthy, I think he's got a chance to be a really good fantasy quarterback. Tyrod Taylor's not a bad streamer. This Dolphins defense is not very good. And so the opposing quarterbacks almost on a weekly basis will be in play. Fields just has the opportunity, I think, to be a potential top 5 quarterback. So he's available in at least on our side on CBS Sports in about 20% of leagues. Not a bad guy if you could pick him up in a 10-team Yahoo and ESPN, those other sites. A great guy to go get and maybe start this week. Garrett Wilson, must-start receiver at this point. And I do think that Breece Hall will bounce back. He's somebody that I was worried about simply from the volume standpoint because would he get the catches and would he get the touchdowns? Not volume, but the catches and the touchdowns. We saw it play out in week 1. He was awesome, but he lost a touchdown to Braylon Allen. He's been 2 catches per game in the 2 games with Justin Fields at a 4 catch. I do think he can have a big game against Miami, obviously. And then for the Dolphins, it should be all systems go. This could be a really good game for Tua Tagovailoa, so not a bad, plug-and-play at quarterback. He's obviously not a must-start guy. Devon Achane, Tyreek Hill, and Jalen Waddle all in play. Keep an eye on Sauce Gardner because he's another guy dealing with a head injury from last week's game. If he's out, that's great for the Dolphins receivers.
We have our first 9:30 a.m. Sunday morning game of the season. It is in Dublin. It is the Steelers hosting the Vikings. What do we like here?
I love Jordan Mason. Got the opportunity because of Aaron Jones' injury and ran away with it last week. 116 yards rushing, 2 touchdowns, and he has an opportunity against the Steelers' run defense that's been pretty bad so far this season to do it again. So, must-start option here. Like, for example, I would start him over Derrick Henry. That's how much I like Jordan Mason, and also Henry struggling a little bit. But Justin Jefferson has been a little bit of a disappointment. When you compare him to some of the other first-round wide receivers, not as bad, but still somebody you're going to start without hesitation. Jordan Addison makes his season debut this week. He's been suspended. He was suspended for the first 3 games of the season. I don't want to trust him yet, but clearly somebody you want to roster. And the one thing about Carson Wentz that we know based on his track record, he loves his tight ends. And you saw last week, Oliver scores a touchdown. Hockenson scores a touchdown. Hockenson had been non-existent through the first 2 weeks of the season. So he's for the Steelers. It's really just Jalen Warren as the guy that you feel the most comfortable with. DK Metcalf has scored a touchdown each of the last 2 weeks, but he's kind of been hovering in that 12 PPR point per game range. So not a must-start guy against this Vikings defense. It's going to be really tough, I think, for the Steelers just based on how good Minnesota does defensively and what Brian Flores brings to the table.
All right, Chargers, Giants. We know the story. We got Jackson Dart making his first career start. Malik Neighbors, obviously you got fantasy owners who are concerned there, what that means moving forward.
Yeah, I hope that there's not too much concern because we saw 2 great games with Russell Wilson. You go back to last year, it was Tommy DeVito, mediocre Daniel Jones, clearly compared to the guy we see now. Drew Lock, like he's been dealing with, a year plus of just bad quarterback play. So hopefully this is the guy that he's going to be married to for the next 2-3 years, as long as Jackson Dart is good because Malik Neighbors isn't going anywhere. And so he's able to, he came out, I believe, on Wednesday and said, what do you think about the quarterback change? He said they know to get number 1 the ball. Like that's the mantra, feed Malik Neighbors. Wan'Dale Robinson, huge game against the Cowboys week 2. He's in the mix as a number 3 wide receiver. And the nice thing we saw is Cam Scatterbo, rookie running back, have a huge game against the Chiefs. He's definitely in play as a number 2 running back for this week as well. For the Chargers, it's really all systems go. The one thing that you do see now is Najee Harris out for the season with the Achilles injury. Again, unfortunate situation, but Omari Hampton, their first-round rookie running back, had a big game last week against the Broncos and should be a must-start running back rest of the way. Don't worry about Ladd McConkey yet. I know Keenan Allen, Quentin Johnson are doing great things. McConkey's numbers will come. They'll be fine.
Falcons and Commanders. The Falcons, they're coming off a weird week where they scored 0, and you got the Commanders, who I guess all eyes are on Jaden Daniels, right?
Yeah, it sounds like Mariota, though, is not a clone of Jaden Daniels from a production standpoint, but he's not far off. He's played 3 games for the Commanders over the last 2 seasons, and he's been 22 fantasy points or more. He does great things with his legs. We know that throughout the course of his career. He's a definite streaming option if Daniels doesn't play, and clearly you're starting Daniels if he starts. Probably not going to see Terry McLaurin out there dealing with a quad injury, so Deebo Samuel in play as a high-end number 2 receiver. Great. I'd be a little bit concerned about Zach Ertz just because the matchup's tough. The Falcons have done a great job against tight ends so far this season. And then really the question for the Commanders is who's the best running back for them. It's kind of a stay away thing for me, at least for now. I want to roster Ja'Cory Krosky-Merrick because I think there's more upside with him than anybody else. But they're using all 3 guys, so it's a little bit messy. And then for the Falcons, it's been really a tough go for everybody but Bijan Robinson. I do think you're going to get, at some point, we have to just see Michael Penix at this point start to pepper his top 2 wide receivers in London and Darnell Mooney. So Mooney is a hold on your bench. London's still a starter, but more of a number 2 receiver than a number 1 guy.
All right, how about the Eagles and Buccaneers here? And, specifically Baker Mayfield. Where is he ranking right now among fantasy quarterbacks?
So 2 great games to start the season, bad game last week. And, you got to keep an eye on now what's happening with the receiving corps because Mike Evans is out for a couple weeks with a hamstring injury. Chris Godwin may return this week, making the season debut from last year's ankle injury. That'll definitely help Baker, but I would try and sit him this week if you can. Now, I wouldn't do going crazy. For example, I like Geno Smith a lot. He's taking on the Bears. I wouldn't be dropping Baker Mayfield to pick up Geno Smith. So if you can afford to carry 2 quarterbacks and there's somebody better, you want to bench him this week. He's clearly been great. He's very touchdown dependent, but now he loses Mike Evans, and that sort of changes the dynamic of the. He's a must-start guy this week just based on what he's done, and now the target share that he'll get. Godwin would be more of a number 3 receiver if he comes back this week. Sterling Shepard could be a desperation play if Godwin's out. And then the running backs is really Bucky Irving at this point. I know we got 1 good game from Rachaad White, but you can't trust that. And for Philly, really, it's what do they want to do? Do they want to come back and go back to the ground and pound, slow things down, push their way down the field, or look more like the team we saw last week? That was fun. I love seeing Philadelphia. Saw the first 2 weeks of the season is just boring, and I don't want to watch that football at all. It's great for Saquon Barkley. It's terrible for A.J. Brown. Jalen Hurts will get his rushing numbers, but they can throw the ball on anybody if they want to. And so it'd be fun to see if they kind of have a little bit more balance this week. So Hurts, A.J. Brown, must-start guys. Devontae Smith, more of a number 3, borderline receiver, 2-3. Dallas Goedert's a number 2 tight end, but still plenty of upside.
So Browns and Lions. The Lions' offense looks fantastic now these last couple of weeks, but it's pretty well established now that the Browns, great defense. So what does that mean?
So Jared Goff at home is typically a monster. You saw it in the Bears game, 5 touchdowns. He can do at times whatever he wants to in the building. I don't know, it's just indoor, outdoor, the confidence that they get there, whatever the case may be. But historically, since he's been in Detroit, when he's been home in the Dome, he's been great. I'm still nervous this week. You said it. This Browns defense is fantastic. Now, Lamar Jackson lit them up. That's Lamar Jackson. He's a different breed. Pocket passers, they've been great so far. They made Jordan Love look as average as they come. They made the run game look average last week. So for me, Jahmyr Gibbs, must-start guy. David Montgomery was an absolute stud last week, but I'm just concerned and more worried about the Baltimore run defense and what they made the Detroit rushing attack look like than what this Browns team has done. They, so far, one of my favorite stats this week, Derrick Henry and Josh Jacobs, 3 of the best fantasy running backs coming into the season, obviously 3 of the better running backs in the league, 48 carries for 96 yards. I'm not great at math, but that's not good. So Montgomery makes me nervous. Gibbs will obviously make plays in the passing game. Jamison Williams is not getting targets. I don't know what's going on there. He's made the big plays against the Bears, but just not involved after what we heard all offseason about being a breakout candidate. So you're starting Amon-Ra St. Brown. You're starting Jahmyr Gibbs. I would basically sit every.
How about the Colts and Rams? This is one of the better matchups of the weekend. You got a Colts team that looks like one of the best in the league offensively.
Really nice surprise. Again, what Daniel Jones has done, and it goes to show you when you get coaching in this league, how good some of these prospects can be, or in the reverse case, not so good. So, you want to call him this year's Sam Darnold, this year's Baker Mayfield. He's just doing such a great job. He's commanding. We said it this offseason, I don't know how you felt about it just watching it, like the Colts' job, whether it was going to be Anthony Richardson stepping up or whoever veteran they brought in, there's good players there. Michael Pittman, Josh Downs are good receivers. They draft Tyler Warren. He's got a chance to be a really special tight end. And obviously Jonathan Taylor. And you're seeing how good it can be based on what Daniel Jones is doing. So this is going to be a tough test. Rams defense is really good. I still think Daniel Jones in the starting conversation. Taylor's a must start. Michael Pittman's been great 2 of 3 games. The one game he struggled was against Pat Surtain and that great Broncos secondary. So I'm starting for the most part the regular Colts. And then for the Rams, the receivers have been awesome. Puka Nacua right now, best receiver in fantasy. Kyren Williams still getting the job done. Devontae Adams, despite being in the other year older, still getting the job done as well. So the 3 main Rams are must-start guys. Matt Stafford, more of a number 2 quarterback.
Ravens and Chiefs also 425 on Sunday. One of these teams are going to drop to 1-3. The Ravens defense has been very sus. Is this going to be the elixir for the Chiefs offense?
So the one thing is, can they run the ball? And the Chiefs right now have shown zero ability to be able to run the ball. Couldn't run against the Giants. They've obviously been in the first 2 games of the season chasing points, so not the best scenario. So will Andy Reid try and get the run game going because Ravens are bad? I doubt it. Isaiah Pacheco, Kareem Hunt might be the better running back in Kansas City right now. But again, nothing from a must-start perspective there. For Mahomes, they may get Xavier Worthy back, which I think is big. So Tyquan Thornton's kind of developed as their deep ball threat. Worthy can be a superstar. You just got to worry about how healthy the shoulder is, but they can dunk their way down the field against this team and maybe take some shots at Thornton. So Mahomes still, must-start quarterback. I would take a chance on Worthy as a number 3. For the Ravens, look, it's kind of the tried and true formula. You got to hope Derrick Henry holds on to the football. It's been frustrating to watch. You hope he's not hitting that point where age is a problem, but Zay Flowers, 2 of 3 games, he's been good. He's a must-start wide receiver. I'd be a little bit cautious about Mark Andrews. It was great last week. I think that more had to do with the Detroit defense as opposed to what the Kansas City defense is. They're typically good against tight ends, and he's had a miserable career against them. So we'll see if Isaiah likely returns as well.
Finally here, Jamey, you got Packers and Cowboys. Are we worried at all about the Packers offensively?
Not this week. I mean, you get the free space. Sometimes you just get these matchups where everything's just falling into place, and this should be one of them. Dallas defense has been bad. I mean, Caleb Williams, I think, is having a great start to his, sophomore season. He lit them up for 4 touchdowns. Russell Wilson goes for 450 against them the week before. Like, this is a bad defense. And so the question is, Packers, will Matt LaFleur allow Jordan Love to throw the ball north of 30 times? They're probably not going to have to because their defense is so good, and the Cowboys offense is probably going to struggle without CeeDee Lamb. So I think just in the case of what you're looking at, Love is a good start, not a great start. I do think this could be the breakout game for Matthew Golden, the rookie wide receiver. Got going a little bit last week. Again, you could do whatever you want to against the secondary. Josh Jacobs is a must-start running back. And then for the Cowboys, I'm nervous. They're down 2 offensive linemen on the interior. Javonte Williams has been a great surprise so far. No CeeDee Lamb, so that could be in trouble. George Pickens should get targets. That's a good opportunity for him. Jake Ferguson's been, one of the best PPR tight ends in football so far in fantasy, so he's a must-start guy. But really, it could be a bad day for this Cowboys offense with Micah Parsons coming back to town.
Who we keeping an eye on these next couple of days as far as injuries go, Jamey?
We want to see, obviously, the quarterbacks. So Justin Fields, Jaden Daniels, know what's going to happen there. That we're keeping an eye on. Ricky Pearsall missed practice on Wednesday, but says he's going to be fine. There's Brock Purdy back. Teteroa McMillan, the rookie wide receiver for Carolina, missed practice on Wednesday with a calf injury. Want to make sure he's good to go, but seems like Worthy's going to play. Seems like Godwin is on track to play. So those 2 wide receivers we're also keeping an eye on.
Awesome job, Jamey. Tell everybody how they can hear you leading up to tonight's game and then all throughout the weekend.
CBSSports.com, CBS Sports HQ. You can always check out all our written content on CBSSports.com, which hopefully is getting you set for all your lineups. And then our podcast, I think, is the best in the business, Fantasy Football Today. You can find it on YouTube, but wherever podcasts are available, the Fantasy Football Today podcast.
Awesome. Thank you, Jamey. Great job, man. We'll talk next week.
You got it, bud. Thank you.